which focuses on visuals. Summer never thought of herself as a visually smart person, but she's discovered, to her surprise, that she's pretty good at creating graphic slides. Sometimes she even starts with a graphic that inspires her speech. A born teacher, she's eager to show what she's learned about creating the graphic slides as part of a successful presentation. Her speech is called Death by PowerPoint, 5 tips to keeping your audience alive. Ladies and gentlemen, Summer Turner.
Can you still,
It was better earlier.
It'll warm up, it'll get a little bit
Oh,
brighter.
that's what it was.
It was too dark.
We can see.
It's it, okay.
Keep doing it so much. Can we move on?
Yeah.
how many of you have heard that expression, death by PowerPoint? Okay, most of you. I'm going to give you 5 tips this evening that will help keep your audience alive during a presentation. Some people say that you should never use PowerPoint, but consider this. 3 days after your presentation, if it was only oral, people remember only 10%. If it was visual, they remember 35%. If you combine oral and visual, people will remember a whopping 65% of what you said. Now you're only going to remember 10% of what I just said. Why? Because I only presented it orally. So let's try this again, and this time with a visual. Research shows that 3 days after your presentation, if it's only oral, people remember 10%. If it's visual, they remember 35%. If you combine oral and visual, people remember a whopping 65%. So now that we all agree that PowerPoint is useful, let's get on to our tips to keeping your audience alive. Tip number 1, don't throw up on your slides. You know what I'm talking about. You want your audience to get every precious word of your life-changing message. So you dump every precious word onto your slide. Like I did here. I threw up all my words onto the slide. Now I'm going to read it to you. I see you starting to die out there. Or worse, you're trying to read my slide and I'm saying something completely different. In that case, you die from your head exploding because you can't process anything. A better solution is to create a memorable graphic showing your main point. Then I can tell you the anecdote about my honors English class in college and how I wish that I knew then what I teach people now about the writing process. So don't throw up on your slides. Tip number 2, don't crowd your slide with images. Here we have a story about a little girl who takes a field trip with her class to the zoo, and she comes back to the school and writes a composition about it. I mistakenly decided that I was going to put in a lot of images about zoos, showing the zoos, so to hammer home the point that it was about zoo. She went to the zoo. The only thing you're going to remember about that presentation, assuming you lived through it, is that it had something to do with zoos. A better solution is to keep it simple. Use only enough graphics you need to get your main point across. The fewer, the better. People need to get your message within about 3 seconds. So don't crowd your slide with images. Tip number 3, don't make too many points and don't use too many words. Here we have a fascinating report about butterflies. But how are you supposed to take in all that information? And does a general audience really need to know the Latin terms? I don't think so. A better guideline is the 6x6 rule. No more than 6 lines per slide and no more than 6 words per line. So for my presentation, I decided what I wanted my audience to know about butterflies, and I actually divided it up into 2 slides. So don't make too many points and don't use too many words. Tip number 4, don't ignore grammar and spelling. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you have careless errors on your slides, people can't help but think you might be kind of a dunce. And you might be a genius in your area of expertise, but people just don't want to hire you if they see that you're not meticulous with details. If spelling and grammar are not your strong suit, get somebody else to proofread your slides, but don't ignore grammar and spelling. Tip number 5, don't forget Plan B. Things can go wrong. Practice your presentation, and that includes with the equipment you're going to use before you show it. Make copies of your presentation. You can use digital and physical copies. Digital could be a jump drive or a CD formatted to PowerPoint. Physical can include copies of your slides to hand out to the audience in case PowerPoint doesn't work at all for some reason. Or if it's a small audience, you can make posters of your slides to display. But don't forget Plan B. This is a slide that I'm going to give you a copy of. You don't have to have a graphics degree or expensive sources of graphics to create good PowerPoint presentations. Most of the slides I used came from Microsoft Word's clip art library, which is free and readily accessible. There are many guidelines to creating a successful PowerPoint presentation. I've distilled it down to 5 tips, which will help you make a memorable presentation and keep your audiences alive. So get out there and bring your audiences back to life with PowerPoint.
Everybody could just take one moment and fill out